Good evening, ballers. Welcome to the 51st episode of the Stepback. 51 Ichiro edition. I can't think of a
All right.
best one, so screw it. It's spring training. I like Ichiro.
All right.
It's your host, Leon Tompkins, my main man, Jacob Moses, and joining us tonight from Buzz City, actually for Golden City, Steel City.
There you go.
Third time's a charm.
Yeah, actually, because I had the Hornets on my mind. But welcome, Tyler Buckley. How you doing, brother?
Good. How are you?
Good. Glad to have you on. Integral part of the group.
Yes, sir.
Big on analytics and quite some interesting takes. But I'm glad to have you on and pick your brain about some topics and get your thoughts on the surging Hornets who right now are in a playoff spot.
I can't believe it. I don't think, if you told me after Kemba was gone that we'd be in a playoff spot after the All-Star break in 2021, I would have assumed half the league was hurt. We somehow signed LeBron James at this point. Like, I don't understand. I thought we were pretty far away. So the transition from Kemba leaving to somehow being not relevant last year, but having some bright sides, and then being in a playoff spot here a year later is very confusing. But I think I don't think there's anything that could have went better at this point.
Yeah, you guys hit a home run with LaMelo Ball. I know there's a lot of people who were critical of his ceiling or his floor, but it seemed to work out with the talent he has there. And Gordon Hayward might be the free agent pickup of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I mean what he's doing efficiency wise is just ridiculous. Like as a first second option and shooting that well, just ridiculous. I mean, you couldn't ask for more from him. I mean, at this point, they're shooting extremely well actually over the floor. I think they're ninth in three-point shooting since the All-Star break, which they were shooting well before, but, even after, still successful. LaMelo's shooting way higher than expected at this point. I mean, he's somewhere around, before he got hurt, was around 46% from the field and like 38%, I think, something like that, which, I mean, I think that was his biggest flaw coming in the league was his question was his shooting. I mean, if you told me he shot 40% of the field and like somewhere a little bit over 30% from three for the year, I'd been happy, right? I mean, that's his biggest issue was coming in the league again was his shooting. So to come out like that, can't complain.
No, I think LaMelo, his vision, his playmaking ability is top notch. You're right. The biggest drawback was his shot, but I think his standstill shot is much better than like him moving, him on the move. But Hornets really took off when he was inserted into the starting lineup. Do you think it was too late or was it right on time? What's your thoughts on that?
Definitely on time. I think if it could have gone either way, right? Like they could have pushed him back a little bit further and they could have rushed him. And clearly letting him kind of slide into that third guard role early on helped him because he clearly struggled at the beginning of the year. There was no question about that. And you saw game one, it was definitely a struggle. Yeah. He definitely was trying to get comfortable, couldn't figure out. The shot just didn't look right. Nothing looked right. And inserting him in that starting lineup at the start would have been really bad. You'd have saw it even worse. I'm not sure he would have adjusted so quickly. But once he got comfortable, and he got comfortable against those second units, things started to change. And then that's when when he's confident, I mean, his confidence is through the roof, right? Like he just raises his game completely and raises everybody else's in the process. So that's definitely a good thing. And the Graham injury was kind of what brought him into that starting lineup, right? So yeah. I don't think that he would have been in that starting lineup yet. I think it would have taken some time still. But it kind of worked out well, I mean, all things considered, because Graham kind of fits better in that second unit role, and LaMelo fits better in that first unit role. And the nice thing about it is LaMelo doesn't have to be a primary ball handler in that first unit. Um, it's been really strange to see him so successful in that off-ball role occasionally, which lets Terry and who probably better off-ball anyway, but Terry occasionally take the lead and let Gordon do his thing. So it's kind of weird. Like you can go through like 8-minute stretches in the first quarter where LaMelo's just playing off-ball or just kind of doing his thing not with the ball in his hands, which is just crazy. And then all of a sudden he takes 6 or 7 possessions straight where it's just in his hand, in the hoop, or to an open shot. Mm-hmm. Can't complain.
No. And what's funny is Kemba Walker faced the Charlotte for many years, kind of gets lowballed on the offer. They fast forward a few years to get Gordon Hayward as a max deal. Many question it. I mean, I thought it was the right move for Charlotte considering where they were. Veteran presence leading a young team. Do you think letting Kemba go was a mistake?
It was. I think what they did was right, even though it seemed kind of rough at first, right? Like Kemba was the face of the franchise, but is he the first option on a championship team? No. Is he the second? Maybe if he's healthy, and that's as a score, like just as a primary scorer, right? Like mm-hmm. No team is going to be guaranteed a championship as him with his second option. If you put him with LeBron, are they winning a championship right now without AD?
No, probably not.
No, probably not, right?
Probably not.
It's not happening unless you're landing some ultra small forward like Kevin Durant, LeBron. You're not a championship team with Kemba as even your second option, right? So at that point, move on, right? I mean, if you give him a max deal, can you afford to build a roster around him? No, I just don't see it. So letting him go and just going full rebuild made a lot of sense. And it kind of you kind of figure out where you're at, right? You got expiring deals. The only deal that's in after this year at that time was Terry. Terry's the only deal after this year. So at that point, you're committed to $20 million to Terry Rozier, you're trying to see if he's whether, going to become a very good player or just become a sixth man. And you kind of let your future open up. That was like the perfect time to let him go. And at least you got something out of him. I mean, if you give him a max deal, you're not going to you can't rebuild, right? And you're not anywhere close to it. And then you're kind of stuck with him, really, which, I mean, who's want to get stuck with an all-star player, right? But you're not going anywhere. Simple as that. So, but if you get him at 20-some million, okay, I'll take an all-star for 20-some million, right? Like, who's gonna decline that?
Right.
So it would either get him cheap or you just let him go.
Makes plenty of sense. Who's your favorite Hornet all time?
All time? It's Kemba still. I mean, it really was the face of the franchise for years. I mean, it was the only thing exciting about that franchise from the Bobcat era and on. I mean, it sucks to see him go, but at the end of the day, it makes sense. I still think he has something left in the tank, but Boston's got a lot of issues to fix there before they can see that happening.
Yeah, they made some move. They made a couple moves at the deadline. I didn't think it was enough, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Jacob, how you feeling this evening? You got the RJ Barrett on. You got the
my guy.
Knicks.
We
Big comeback last night, man. How you feeling?
Yes, sir. That was good. It was good. RJ actually, he stepped it up. Randall went out with a little quad injury. He was getting on the bike and trying to loosen it up. And Taj Gibson, that vet leadership, got into RJ, gave him a little encouragement, and that's all it took. Quickly doing his thing. Alec Burks has been playing amazing, just efficient basketball is what they signed him for. And I know it's the Wizards, but still. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. A comeback win. They showed heart. I mean, the grit in this team. Mitchell Robinson is looking okay. Noel's still doing his thing. Alfred Payton being trash. Once again, I'll repeat. Let's rewind that back. Elton, whatever his name is, trash. Please, they should have tried to get something. I don't know what's going on with him and Perry. but that got to end. And I'm hoping to Christ we don't see him again. Also, he had a no trade clause, by the way. Just a little tidbit.
Peyton has a no trade clause?
Yes, he did.
How the
He
hell
does.
he managed that?
Like I said, him and Perry are like this, but the Knicks are playing well. They're another team, just like the Hornets. I said, if they played right the whole year and things went their way, they both could have made the playoffs. And look at us now. We might be in the playoff race. I don't care if they get knocked, like I said, 4 in the first round. That means the culture changed. We got to the playoffs. They did what they have to do, and that's all she wrote. But let's see. But like the Hornets, when they signed Hayward, I'm like, okay, if he's healthy, he would be really good for that team. LaMelo, I will say it. I was high on everything else but his shooting. Everything else, his vision. I saw a lot of games in since high school, all the way up. His vision always been there. His shooting just irritated the hell out of me. The form just killed me. Taking half-court shots. Yeah, he was making them, but you're like, will that translate in the league? But he's a really smart player. And I still don't think how his dad can say that LiAngelo or Jello is the best one. That's still kind of wild to me. I just don't. He's so good. Why isn't he in the league? But okay. But no, you should be proud, Tyler. Just man, I would be hyped. I'm hyped. I'm just the Knicks, Hornets. This is crazy. This is like the early '90s again. It's a nice feeling.
Yeah, and Knicks, Hornets, Bulls, all in it. It's wild.
Yeah, it is.
We thought 2020 was wild. 2021 brought us the Knicks as 4 or 5 seeds. So, just wait. The conference champs are the 7th seed, and the Boston Celtics are the 8th seed.
Oh man, that's not 2021. I don't know what it is.
Oh man,
it's late March.
Mm-hmm. This is.
There's plenty of time. They're 4 through 10 seeds, separated by 2.5, 3 games. So just jockeying for position. Trade deadline passed, and some moves were made. But first, speaking of 2021, we got a somber note. One of the greats, Elgin Baylor, passed away. One of, well, you could say, of the first super teams created in the NBA with him, Jerry West, and Wilt Chamberlain on that Lakers team. 11-time All-Star, 10-time All-NBA first team, Rookie of the Year in '59. Passed away at 86. I know we went through the group and covering the eras, the 80s, the 70s. We didn't cover the 60s because there's not much video. So, but to understand the impact he had on the game, one of the premier high-flying, ahead of his time, small forwards in the league, just to give you his numbers. From 60 to 63, he averaged 34.8, 38.3, and 34 points a game. Averaged 13.5 rebounds for his career, and averaged 19.5 rebounds in 1960. So, I mean, he was a do-it-all forward who captivated the game. Some say the best player to not win a championship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, what are you saying? 3rd, 4th best of all time in his position? I mean,
yeah. I mean, I would. You could probably say 3rd if you're right behind LeBron and Larry, and even Larry and Baylor could be a toss-up. It just depends on your preference of era. But
yeah, I mean, the top 3 are close enough that it's a conversation, right? That's just the impact alone.
Yeah, it's definitely great. I mean, he was kind of like, he played every time he basically look at his games, played 70 games, 73, 48. He must have been injured, 80, 78, 74. But when he played most of those games, he played like 40 minutes a game. So he's taking no breaks.
Right. And he missed some time due to he had some service time.
There you go. That's what it was. But yeah, that dude was great. I mean, definitely didn't win a chip, Shout out to the Knicks, Clyde Frazier and all them. But it's definitely one of the greatest Lakers of all time, best players of all time. That the rebounding is just crazy.
Yeah.
Especially for somebody his size. Like I said, just small forward. You don't really see that, and besides a few, but definitely one of the greats, man. He will be missed by the whole basketball world, man.
Yeah, one of the top 50 players named in '96, 22 years as a Clipper executive, has his statue right outside Staples Center, named Executive of the Year in 2006. But as great of a player as he was on the court, he was an even better person off of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in the '60s, time in America, and unfortunately, with segregation and Jim Crow laws and so on and so forth, Lakers traveling, Baylor was denied to eat at a restaurant, and he decided to boycott the game, didn't play. The Lakers followed suit. They didn't play. And afterwards, the Lakers demanded non-segregation clauses in contracts when setting up games. So Baylor stood for something. It was bigger than himself and the team, and to have the team follow him as well. This speaks to his character as well as his play on the court.
So it's about being a leader. That's not appreciated until you're gone. That's how I kind of feel about Braun. That's gonna be the same thing. You're not gonna appreciate it until you don't see him anymore.
Yeah, it's a rough go. 2021, it's more or less picking up where 2020 left off with the unfortunate events. But condolences to his family and the NBA community as we lost a good one. So I trade deadline was yesterday. I know we had an active thread in the group. Shout out to everyone who participated. It was active, but not like a lot of the names moved that I thought would. Mm-hmm. I kind of equate this to with the wild card in baseball. So many teams involved, so you kind of find out who the buyers and sellers are. And Chicago, I previously said, kind of in that kind of up in the air. Norman Levine's a free agent, but they're also right on the cusp of a playoff spot. They go out, make a big move for Vucevic, trading away Porter, Wendell Carter Jr., and 2 first-round picks. So got Levine and Vucevic in Chicago. Tyler, what's your thoughts on Vucevic joining the Bulls?
I mean, I think it makes them a good playoff team, right? Like, what's their realistic goal here, though? Like, are they trying to keep Zach around? Are they trying to build around Zach? Like, what's the end goal here? Because realistically, the East runs through 3, maybe 4 teams right now, right? Like, that given everyone's healthy, top 3 teams are pretty obvious, especially right now. It's clearly Brooklyn with the 3 of them, I mean, 3 stars.
That's what I want to hear.
You got Milwaukee. I mean, Giannis is always going to do his thing. Middleton, Holiday, they've got a nice supporting cast outside of them, but that's just a good team in general. We know anytime Giannis is leading a team, it's going to have success, right?
Right.
And then you've got Philly, who finally gave Ben all the shooters that they possibly could want and need. Embiid, hopefully, is going to be healthy. I mean, we never know with him anymore, unfortunately, but healthy, that team is a top 3 or 4 team. And then you've got Miami, who is under 500 right now, but defending conference champions. Just added Depot, a team that's been really successful this season when Jimmy's healthy, but between COVID and own actual physical health, it's just been that team's destroyed all year round, right? So are they a playoff team? Yeah, but I'm not sure where they go from here because Vucevic's 30 years old, I believe, maybe 31 soon.
Yep.
So you're, how many years does he have left? I mean, he's in his later of his prime, but Zach's 27, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Seems like they're going all in for a team that just unfortunately is just not going to get past the first round, right? Like as much as excited I am for the Hornets to make the playoffs, you've got the Knicks can be a good team, Bulls, a couple other teams there and there, Pacers, maybe the Raptors, Celtics, obviously. It's just a lot of teams are kind of battling right now to be a first-round playoff team, and then I just don't see them going any further. So they mortgaged a lot of – Wendell Carter, I'm not sure they're really sold on him clearly because they gave up on him.
Right.
Gave up or just got a better player, right? And then you also add in 2 firsts. They mortgaged the future a little bit for there. So, yeah, they got a lot better now, but I'm not sure that's better for the future at this point because, again, they're a good team, but I don't see it being anything past that, unfortunately.
No, I can't see it either. With you trade for him, of course, it made sense because you can tell they believe in marketing more. And he actually can stretch the floor a lot better than Wendell Carter can. He's more of a banger in the paint. So it made sense to move him. But like you said, Vooch he's getting up there now. How much is that really going to make Zach stay? I don't think so. I think he's going to leave the first chance he gets. Maybe it's just his demeanor. He just doesn't seem happy. He just seems like he has this face. You can tell when guys are legitimately enjoying playing on the floor and doing that thing. Maybe it's just how he is, but the Bulls, they get to the playoffs. Kobe is really good. You have Vooch, Zach, Pat Williams. He's coming along fine. So that should be enough.
Yeah, I think he's happy with Vucevic coming, but I just don't think he's necessarily going to be happy in the direction they're going, right? It's unfortunately just not enough. And it's nothing against Zach, but championship team, like Kemba, not a first option. Maybe a second option. With the way he's playing there, absolutely a second option. He's shooting over 50%, over 50, 40, 80. It's somewhere in the almost high 80s. Almost
yeah,
80.
He's in the high 80s.
He's 50, 40, 90 club, right? And even higher, actually, on the field and from 3. But it's just Vucevic's then a third option. So now you're missing that first option, which then, if you took somebody like Harden or KD and put them on that team, yeah, they're a contender. That's instantly a championship team, right?
They're
not a championship team, but a contender in the East.
I think Zach's the first option. He is absolutely streaky, and he has elevated his game to the point where he is a legitimate 25 to 30-point threat every night. He just didn't have the help around him. Marketing was hurt. Wendell Carter, he's decent, but from what they got for Vucevic, the inside-outside threat, I think it showed commitment to Zach. I think he stays. And, Kobe White, if they're able to build, it's a nice building block with Kobe, Zach, Vooch, and Billy Donovan finally getting some offense in Chicago after years of boiling and 90s scores. I think if I were to grade this trade, I'd give it a A-, B+. I think this was stellar. It's not for this year would help, but it's also showing commitment to next year. I like this trade a lot.
So here's the question. How many first options are there out there that are legitimately first options on championship teams? If you said how many players right now could be a first option and take a team to a championship, given, the stakes are fair around, given the teams right now, how many of those guys could be first options and win you a championship and you'd feel comfortable going in the playoffs?
Look at James Harden. He was a first option. He sacrificed his game. You look at Jimmy Butler. Do you think of him as a first option?
First option scorer.
He turns it on when he wants.
I think he's on that border. With Jimmy, kind of gives you more intangibles, such as his hustle, his leadership. There's a lot of little things that he does that makes him that borderline first option. But the nice thing about them is Miami was so deep last year that Bam became the all-star that he was. Tyler was giving you double digits every playoff game. For a rookie, scoring 16 points a game. I think it was somewhere around the 15, 16 points a game and was efficient too. hitting crazy shots and daggers that you just didn't expect, right? Goran was averaging, I think, close to almost 20 points a game in the playoffs. I could be completely wrong on that, but he was going off himself. I mean, they had a lot of guys that were putting up really good numbers, and that made Jimmy that first option and successful. And Jimmy had like a crazy year, right?
Right.
So if you think Zach's the first option, maybe, but he's on that back end, the point where that second option has to be another great player just because of who else is in the league, right? Like, you've got teams like Brooklyn, again, is Kyrie's the first option on a championship team?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's three of them.
Yeah. So now you have to figure three – how you're going to stop three first options.
You don't have to stop them. Whoa.
Yeah, for him.
Right. So that's why Vooch is the next piece. You show Zach, well, there's a commitment. Let's play around with the roster a bit and see if we can find that third piece. DeRozan, maybe, I don't know, but they have something that they can work with. Wendell Carter and Otto Porter Jr. just wasn't going to cut it. I still like the move for Chicago.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad move. I'm just not sure they're going to find the next piece that's going to put them over that hump to put them into like that. You start getting to that second, third round where you start to finally kind of break down other teams. I think Philly right now, I mean, given injuries, Philly's a championship team for the next couple of years, right? Like, they're going to be in there. Brooklyn, assuming that, that core doesn't break up, championship level team for the next couple of years. Milwaukee just committed to Giannis, so given that Giannis doesn't have some breakdown, he's on a team. That's a championship team, or at least somewhere in the competition. And then that fourth team, Miami, for a little while. I mean, their core is pretty young outside of Jimmy. Not that Jimmy's old, but pretty young, relatively outside of him. I mean, they're gonna have to find that borderline second first option to put themselves over the hump, and I'm just not sure who's going to be available for them to do so.
That's fair. Another move from Orlando as they go complete their fire sale. Aaron Gordon. This man knocked down 7 threes I've never seen in my life. Got his ticket to Denver and for Gary Harris, R.J. Hampton, and the first. Aaron Gordon in Denver.
I like it. I really like this freaking move. That front court is going to be a problem. I mean, it's – and, he already likes to get up and down the court, so it's going to be fun. And plus, Joker, he knows how to pass it, so that's going to be real interesting. Gary Harris, I was high on him when they, drafted him. He can 3-and-D guy, but it just seems like after his first 2 years, he just fell out of place, especially with MPJ coming in and doing his thing. And Malik Beasley at the time, the time, he kind of really just fell out of place. But I like this move for Denver. I honestly think they could have won it. They won the trade season. Just doing that alone, it should be a problem.
Yeah, I think Gary Harris has some hip issues too, I believe.
Yeah,
right?
he did. Mm-hmm.
I couldn't remember. Hip issues. So I think that's what kind of threw him off. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was going to be a good player, but it's just that hip injury kind of dropped him off.
For sure.
I think that's probably the best move of the offseason or this trade deadline, maybe with Depot coming in for pretty much chump change. Not that they really had. He was like Miami or Miami. Mm-hmm. Miami or don't play, right? So at this point, you take whatever Miami's willing to give you. But I'm not sure Gary Harris really has value at this point based off his contract. So I'm not sure what that was, why he was kind of in there other than to fill a roster spot and to, maybe hope that he can, if he gets more playing time and gets more better looks and gets the ball in his hand, maybe he'll kind of bring himself some value. But yeah, I'm not sure he has much value there. RJ Hampton, obviously, I mean, you're going to have value of a guy there. And the first round pick, that pick's not going to be great, but at least it's a first rounder. Kind of a guy that kind of won it out. So I don't think Denver gave up much, but I also think that Orlando got something at least out of him. So walking away out of this day with, 2 seconds, 3 firsts, and, Gary Harris is not bad, but, maybe you get something out of him eventually. And another young rookie, well, obviously young, a rookie, at least you get something out of this day. They need to go full rebuild at this point. And they've already started that rebuild too with Cole Anthony and a couple other young guys.
Markel Fultz when he comes back. See,
Yeah, well, Orlando's been killed by injury. Jonathan Isaac, Anthony Fultz. Yeah, so but better that they punt now and start the rebuild process rather than hold on to Vucevic and meddle around in the 15th, 16th pick just to perform the process all over again.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I would have to be sad about for them if I was a Magic fan was not getting rid of Terrence Ross. I thought he could have brought in at least a first. He's not like he's game-changing player, but that's a guy that kind of comes in the playoffs and makes a big difference for a team. Kind of reminds me not the play style, but kind of the impact that like Jay Crowder made last year for Miami. Mm-hmm. I thought that if he ended up on a championship caliber team, he could make some plays and make some splashes here and there, especially in that second unit that, could have brought you at least some picks or somebody young.
Yeah, it makes plenty of sense. They traded everybody but him. Orlando also trading Evan Fournier for 2 second-rounders to Boston. Boston gets that Hayward replacement guy, two-way player, good shooter, defend well, come off the bench, or possibly play the 3. What you make of Evan Fournier to Boston?
I like it. I mean, they got him relatively cheap, right? It was 2 seconds and something else. I forget what the other thing was. I'm not sure if you recall who it was, but
I think it was just 2 second-round picks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 2 second-round picks for a guy that's could put up anywhere between 15 and 20 a night, right? Like, and he's going to do the little other things here and there. I'm just not sure they've got the space on the floor for him at this point. Like, their biggest issue was the 4 and 5, right? So they go out and get rid of their primary defender at the 5 and then add another wing, right? So, like, what's the thought process here, right? Like, the idea was to bring in a 5 like Vucevic, and then they did the opposite. They got rid of a 5 and brought in a 2-3. Like, I like the player. I'm just not sure what the purpose of doing that was. I feel like if you're going to make that deal, I mean, if you're going to get him for 2 seconds, yeah, absolutely take him. And especially if you can invest in him long term at a relatively cheap price, take him, right? But if you're going to do that, you have to go out and get a 5. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure what their thought process was, unless they're I like Robert Williams. I think he's got potential.
Oh yeah,
but I just they must, unless they're going to commit to him full time moving forward. I feel like they just didn't do enough, especially with how bad they've been. Right, like it's not like they've been. I mean, they've had their COVID issues and stuff like that, like other teams, and injury issues here and there. Kemba obviously can't stay healthy at all this year. I think Tatum's missed some games from COVID, and they've had some other issues again. But it's just they're not like a team like Miami who was falling apart because of not because of just COVID, but COVID and injuries, right? Like Boston's problems weren't just that. That 4 and 5 position when Tatum isn't playing the 4 is, I mean, you've got Robert Williams being successful, but they're limiting him to under 20 minutes a game. Tristan Thompson is not the answer. And then their only other option, they just traded. So who's going to log those minutes at the 5 at this point, right? So that's going to be interesting. I'm not even sure who they've –
Well, there's talks of them talking to Drummond, so he may take a look and take a look over there. I don't know about – I think Aldridge said he's not interested in Boston. That wasn't one of his teams.
Yeah.
But, yeah, like we went through this even during the playoffs and their need for a big, and all off season it was the same thing. I personally believe that this was just Danny Ainge under the pressure just to make a move because he didn't pull the trigger before. You know, needing that third star, you know, you miss out on Paul George, you miss out on Harden, and you end up with Fournier. Granted, he's a nice player, but it's not the difference maker that you need. If it was Fournier and someone else, you can make that argument. I just think it was Ainge just making the deal just to, you know, say he did something.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I don't think Boston's anywhere near – like, Boston's way ahead of their time. Right? Like, Tatum and Brown are so young. Smart's still relatively young. Robert Williams, if he's part of your future, if he's going to finally grow into the guy that they think he can grow into, I mean, they've got a nice young core. I mean, the only guy that's getting up there in age is Kemba, and part of their core is Kemba, right?
Right.
So at this point, they don't need to go all in. Like, going out and getting Vucevic makes a big difference now, or getting a big game 5 makes a difference, but they don't need to be a championship team right now. I think if you start to watch these the main core, those first options right now, I mean, LeBron, KD, Harden, those guys are kind of getting up there in age. So maybe they kind of wait it out and don't commit too heavily. But they've got to be careful that, you know, the cap doesn't become an issue in the future too, right? So they're going to have to lock up, or they are locking up Jason and Jalen long term here. So it's kind of those things like they feel like they're just on that edge where they can become a contender, but why do you salvage the future to go in right now when the guys are still so young?
Yeah, I have a feeling they're going to look to trade Kemba this offseason. They're going to, you know, just cut bait and try to rearrange that roster. But, I mean, credit to Boston trying to go for it now, but I don't think it was enough. Mention another Eastern Conference team, the Miami Heat, getting Victor Oladipo for Avery Bradley, Kelly Olynyk, and a second round pick, right? No, the first.
Draft swap.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's left.
I was going to say one thing. Let me get this one out. So you telling me they traded James Harden and Victor Oladipo for Kelly Olynyk? Once again, don't adjust your screens. You got this right. Kelly Olynyk. 2 superstars, and they get botch is not even a word. I mean, they fucked up. I'm sorry.
They got a lot of firsts out of it. The thing is, like, the Depot trade just didn't make sense in the first place. Like, why
exactly?
Like, I understand Depot's a great player. Like, he was the second best player in that deal, right? Like, other than Harden, he's the best player in that deal.
Absolutely.
I thought it was LeVert, but you know.
I mean,
it's understandable. He's on that, like, healthy Depot, absolutely. Injured Depot, I don't know. But at the end of the day, it's like, why did you get him if you knew he didn't want to be there? Why wouldn't you just keep LeVert? There had to be something in there that made LeVert have to go out. Like, there had to be something involved that forced them to do that swap, because you wouldn't do that knowing Depot's situation and feel confident thinking that you're going to get more for Depot than you are for LeVert, right?
And Jared Allen.
Exactly.
It's not like he's a bum. None of it made any sense.
Yeah, I was okay with them getting all those first, especially with the I forgot the exact trade ruling, but them having to be every other year for those draft picks.
Yeah, you can't do it in consecutive years.
Yeah, you're pushing to 2028 for that last Brooklyn pick, right?
Yeah.
And, I mean, Brooklyn's all in right now, right? So, are they a championship team in 7 years?
No, but we'll take 4 out of 7. That's fine.
Take 4 out of 7.
So, are they a championship team in 2026?
Yes.
You think?
Who?
Yeah.
Brooklyn, 5 years from now, you think they're a championship team?
How? Who the hell they winning with?
Harden, duh.
So, so at the end of the day, those two picks, unprotected in 2026 and 2028, could be pretty high, right? While they're also on the flip end of maybe pushing that rebuild to, I'm assuming they get somebody like Cade Cunningham this offseason. Pretty good. And you start that rebuild. So maybe those picks come around where it kind of looks like the Brooklyn situation, right? Where they become a good team. Then those picks become relevant again. Mm-hmm. And then they have top picks because Brooklyn's on the downslide, Houston's on the upslide. So maybe it's good for them, hopefully. But
Houston upslide. I've never heard that in a sentence.
Did I say upslide or upside?
Name a sport where Houston has an upside.
Well,
you have Deshaun Watts.
Never mind. Yeah, never mind.
Yeah.
But either way, back to the subject of Depot. Avery Bradley was pretty much a giveaway, right? Like, it was just a roster spot. He's playing 20 minutes and at least being relevant for them, but nothing crazy. Nothing that, like, oh, no, Avery Bradley's out. Oh, no. So the biggest issue for Miami at this point is Kelly Olynyk, right? Like, as crazy as that sounds, he was still serviceable, giving them good minutes, hitting threes. When he was he was inconsistent, so, maybe, goes 0 for 5 on a night. Next night he's 4 for 5, and he's dropping 20 points. So it just depends on what Kelly Olynyk kind of showed up for them. But if you're telling me I'm trading Kelly Olynyk in a crazy draft swap for Victor Oladipo, yeah, I'm pretty happy, even if it's for 3-4 months.
Yeah, you can't turn that down. But, like, Houston could try to get as many picks as they want. They'll never catch the Thunder. So
no, they got it on lock.
They only have to catch, like, 34 picks. It's not that big of a deal. So they've got 34 picks with 17 being first, 17 being seconds. So 17 first, and that's in the next, 7 years? 7 years? Yep. So they're drafting at least twice in every first round pretty much. Well,
yeah, but my thing is those picks will turn into superstars. You have enough picks where you can buy 2 stars.
Oh, yeah.
Add him with SGA, and you could start that faster. So,
yeah, I mean, that's how they got them, right? They traded 2 stars.
Yeah. So anybody thinks they're going to draft, 17 players, 34 players, they're out their minds. It's just adding draft capital. It's a premium.
Yeah.
Do you think Oladipo makes a difference in Miami to overtake the top 3 seeds?
It's hard to tell because Miami's like right now. Miami with Jimmy Butler healthy, they're 18-12. So that gives you about 27 wins over the current 45 game schedule, which would put them about a game and a half behind Brooklyn right now, game and a half behind Milwaukee, and that's assuming that's not even including the games that Bam's missed, Tyler's missed. I mean, Nunn, Dragon, everyone's missed games at this point, right? So that's 18-12 with just Jimmy, not including the players that have missed over top of that, right? So Miami's had it probably the worst of any team this season. The only problem is I'm not sure. Are they just going to run 5 guards at some point? Is that the plan? 5 guards and wings? Is that the combination? Because looking at depth chart now, you've got to find minutes for – and I know Nunn didn't play much in the playoffs last year, but – either way, you're still seeing a good player. So you got Nunn, Dragon, Tyler, Depot, Duncan, and Jimmy. That's 7 players right there that have to play over 3 spots in a game. And that's assuming Iggy plays the 4.
Yeah.
That doesn't include Dave Vincent.
Right.
And they like both of them.
Right, and Felipe brings up a good point. They needed a power forward, and which they traded for a bench piece from the Kings, Bielika. He's a proven shooter, found in the doghouse in Sacramento. I think he'll be valuable off the bench, but him and Precious Achiuwa, like they're good role players. I'm not sure if that will be enough to overtake the top 3 teams in the playoffs, but you're banking on Jimmy Butler at that point.
Yeah, I think the good thing about them, Miami, is they match up well against Milwaukee, right? And we saw that was pretty much what they've been doing for the last 2 years. They've matched up well against them.
Yes,
and
that's what you asked for.
We saw that last year. I mean, they really took it to Milwaukee, right? Like,
Mhm.
the game they won in that series was a game that Giannis left in the second quarter or first quarter. I mean, he was dominant in the first when he played, but he left it. Milwaukee turned it around, right? So they were borderline going to get swept. Bam matches well up, and he defends well. He's going to be a great defender against those top teams when he's guarding. If he plays Philly, guards Embiid, has success there in the past. Guards Giannis, had success there in the past. So it's not like they're going to have to run up against, somebody that they can't guard necessarily because Bam's there. But you're pretty much going to end up getting small ball at some point, and you're going to run a lineup of probably, Goran, Tyler, Duncan, Jimmy, and Bam. So I'm not sure that the 4 is really the biggest issue because I think once they get down to the stretch, they're going to just run Jimmy at that 4 spot. But I think they've got enough pieces to fill the minutes for now when they need to run an actual 4 and just run Bam at the 5.
Makes sense.
It's one of those things like if they can get healthy and kind of get rolling before the playoffs come around, we'll start to see the true colors, right? Because you're going to have to figure out who's going to play minutes, who's going to sit. I don't think none sits this time around. I think they're going to see what he actually has in store for them and kind of leave that second unit at points. And I think the best thing about bringing in Depot is your second shot creator isn't Tyler anymore, right? So the amount of shots that he's creating for himself is ridiculous. The second-year pro should not be creating that many shots, especially on a potentially championship team last year. So getting Depot in there that created his own shots is going to be nice. He'll get a lot more open looks than he was in Houston. And then they're both going to open up shots to each other, so that's going to be nice. So you'll hopefully see a raise in their shots there. Maybe Duncan gets some more open looks again because he's had a pretty rough year for his last year. So I think their biggest issue is not missing the 4, but having so many different options that you almost start kicking yourself of, should I play this guy over here? So what situation makes the most sense in trying to – I mean, we've only got less than 30 games left, and they have to figure out their whole rotation.
Yeah.
They have to figure all year.
Yeah, but I like Spoelstra is a veteran coach. He's been through the ringer, proven championship pedigree. I think he'll figure all that out. I know there's talk of LaMarcus Aldridge possibly going over there. I mean, it's another body. It could work. He's incredibly slow, but he's an excellent pick and pop person. Can't hurt them, maybe except on the defensive end. But you have Bam and Jimmy there. You can really make up for it.
Yeah, and depending on what Depot is there, if it's
right.
The healthy previous Indiana Pacers Depot or what, but I'd imagine he starts to give 110% when he's where he wants to be. So, I mean, they're going to be interesting. I mean, they've got guys that can shots. They've got guys that can hit open threes. They can straight up shoot. So,
yeah, there'll definitely be a problem. One more trade to go over. The Atlanta Hawks swapped with the Clippers Rondo for Lou Williams. Clippers looking for that point guard. Everybody knows Pat Bev is really not the answer. There was talk of them going with Kyle Lowry, but instead, Rondo returns to LA. Lou Williams returns home. Magic City Kitchen. Full effect. What do you guys make of the Clippers Hawks trade? Yeah, Jake.
I guess they want a defense. That's the only way I can go with it. Hawks get another scorer. I mean, I guess he might have wore his welcome. Oh, and plus also you got Marcus Morris there, so he can take on that 6-man role if needed. So I guess they wanted to get like I said, another point on the floor that can actually run the team for that second unit, and Rondo can do that, or Pat Bev. So it's pretty much the same player. So with Rondo being a slight edge better, but
Yeah.
it's the Clippers, so it's not too much to actually dive into with this move. It's they got tired of him pretty much.
Yeah, they're really banking on playoff Rondo coming
Oh
out.
yeah.
Is I mean, the difference between what Rondo was doing in the regular season last year and what he did in the playoffs was pretty significant, right?
Mhm.
So if playoff Rondo's around, that's a big move. If not, I mean, I just don't think they really want to Lou taking shots anymore at this point, right? Like, it's been a weird year for him. It feels like they just didn't want him around. So at this point, they were willing to just kind of move on from him no matter what. And it was like, hey, we're not worried about now. We're worried about, this playoff season coming up because this is a big one for us. So especially with Kawhi potentially could walk if he really wanted to. Not that he will, most likely. But if he wanted to, he could. So I think they had to go out and get somebody that would make a difference and potentially make a splash in the playoffs. And I just don't think they were sold on Lou doing it. So move on from him and find someone that can.
Yeah, I'm high on Atlanta. I was high on them during the year. But once they fired their coach, they went out 1-8 straight. They needed some scoring off the bench. Now with Bogdanovich back and Hunter back, Lou Williams add to the punch. They're a high-scoring, high-octane team. Now they're playing defense. I think they'll be a dangerous team to be playing in that 6 or 7 seed. And Lou Williams been there before. Goes home, makes that deal. And Rondo, like you guys said it before, it's playoff Rondo. If you can get Paul George and Kawhi to get in line and lead them, get them over the hump, it's well worth a trade. We know Lowry was the top gun, but Toronto's asking price was quite high. Philly backed out, Clippers backed out, Miami backed out. Are you guys surprised that Lowry stayed?
Not after I saw all the demands that they wanted from him. He can stay. Old Papa Lowry.
Yeah.
They really wanted some just first round. This ain't the Knicks, all right? You ain't nobody making that deal. Well, let me say this: the Knicks of about 8-9 years ago, but yeah, nobody was making that deal. It was we're not giving up a whole bunch of capital for a rest of the year of Lowry. Come on, what
I'm
team? Go ahead. What's up?
I'm surprised the Lakers didn't pull the trigger when the main piece was THT.
They're really high on him or something. I just they don't want to. They every day, every big star, they like we really don't want to give him up or some kind of significant piece. They don't want to give him up or
The
they.
money situation I can understand with Tyler, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what we saw in the playoffs last year is more realistic of what we're going to see moving forward than what we see this year, where he's just been battling injuries nonstop, and we know he can create his own shot. We know he's willing to just go out and do whatever it takes. And if they need someone to take a stupid shot and hope that it's going to go in, it's Tyler, right? We saw him put. It felt like he had like 4 or 5 daggers last playoffs that were like deep threes that like you saw him take the jump and take the shot, and you're like, what is he doing? Oh, okay. So I can understand that. But the THT thing, it's not like he's making a difference. Like, he's not playing significant minutes now. So why not go all in with Anthony Davis and LeBron when you still can? Especially when, like, it didn't seem like they were getting rid of any of the starters, right? Like, it seemed like there was nobody else in that deal except for THT and picks.
I think the LeBron injury killed him.
Yeah, that was
I think they figured out that if I think they know they don't have enough to keep up with either Denver or Utah. So why give up the young talent if you legitimately don't believe in AD's or LeBron's health coming in the next 4 to 6 weeks? That's why you saw like Schroeder on the block, Harrell on the block for some reason, and these guys were just brought in. So I think internally, I don't think the Lakers believe.
So here's the question though, like, how do the Lakers think they're going to miss the playoffs? Because right now, the only team that's going to take them out of the play-in at the very like they're 6 games, they're closer to Utah than they are to Golden State at this point, right? So there's 5 games back of Utah, 6 games back of Golden State in the play-in. So the only team that would knock them out of a play-in is Sacramento, and that's just not happening, right?
No.
So no matter what, they're playing a play-in game at the very worst. Assuming they just go full tank mode the rest of the way. So they're not falling 10 games back in the next 6 weeks. So why not go out and get somebody? I mean, if you don't and you fall to that, like say they only fall to the 6th spot, they're going to play the Clippers in the first round. Are you beating them with LeBron just coming back and AD just coming back?
That's rough.
I'm not sure they're going to beat them right now, like before the injuries, let alone after.
Yeah, the Lakers are in a tough spot, which is why LeBron was so insistent on pushing back the start time, and it clearly shows now.
Yeah, I just feel like if it was THT plus picks, I mean, it sucks, but I think they could have kept Lowry around after the year and at least brought someone in to kind of make that team relevant for now to kind of at least not keep pace, but come close to keeping pace.
Yeah, it kind
you
of.
really just be 500 right at this point. They haven't won a game since LeBron's went down.
Nope. No, they haven't. I mean, they almost came back last night against Philly, but comeback fell short. The Lakers. I mean, if there was more time in the season, I'm pretty sure they'd free fall out of a spot. But the Pelicans are kind of in that 11 to 12 range. They're 3 games or so behind there. Lonzo stays in New Orleans. JJ Redick goes to Dallas. Are you guys surprised Lonzo stayed?
No. Because I think people understood that he's going to be a free agent anyway. It's restricted, but you still can, pull a Jeremy Lin move and get that poison pill third or fourth year in there and kind of pry him away. But I just think a lot of teams were weary on it because they didn't want to give up the capital for rental. And I think a lot of teams are starting to see that. Like Miami made sense because Oladipo has made it clear he wanted to be in Miami. That's where he wants to be. So I can see them working something out. But Lonzo, we all know his dad. He said he wants out. Who knows him better than his father? They tried to get whatever they could for him. I mean, I just see it made sense not to trade for him. I'm kind of happy. Like I said, if it happened, Knicks fan-wise, I would have been fine with it. They didn't happen. I'm fine with it as well because it's not like that would have put us over the top anyway. So, yeah, Lonzo Ball would have been nice with Julius Randle again, but
it's kind of like if you ignore the fact that he's an RFA, right? Like if you ask me at the trade deadline, a guy who's 14, 4, and 6 averages, puts up 43% from the field, 39% from 3, shooting 77% from the free throw line. He's 23 years old, former top 3 pick. What's his price? Probably really high, right?
Had to have been.
Had to have been high. And then his price drops because he's a free agent. Not as low because he's an RFA, not a UFA. But he's 23 years old. So if that team, whoever takes him in a trade, re-signs him, they just got a good young player. So that's what the value that I'm sure New Orleans was looking for. They were looking for the 23-year-old good point guard who shoots well from the floor is what they were looking for in value. The teams were looking at him as he's an RFA this summer. He's a 6-man borderline starting point guard who can run a second unit or run with the first unit when necessary, shoot well, and then he's going to leave after the year. So one team's looking for this up here, other team's looking for something down here.
Yeah, it doesn't match up. The stats kind of – you look at the stats and it kind of sometimes misleading, which brings us to our next point. Tyler, you're kind of a new school. It's analytics versus the eye test. We see players back in the day. We see players today. the 3-point game is much more prevalent now than what it was before. And, you know, I will give you credit. You do bring a lot of interesting polls to the group.
Sure.
You know, we differ on a lot of players. You know, I'll give you some examples. You know, first, Trae Young. Yeah, you think he's god awful. Analytics show it, but you know, his eye game reminds you of Curry and Light, and then you kind of wonder where is the disconnect. So where does the analytics play in as far as you determining a player?
So it's kind of like at first you can't take it too extreme, right? Like Trae Young, a late playmaker and scorer, right? Shoots not as well as you'd think, but his range kind of makes sense for that, right? Like he's gonna take any shot. It's Dame, Steph. They take the ridiculous shots. They're just much more efficient with them, but not like Trae's super inefficient, right? But he's willing to take those shots, and that's what makes him a first option scorer and a first option on the offensive side, right? But then it kind of brings you to the defensive side. How bad does it get? Well, we trashed James Harden for years, right? And he was lazy. There's no way around that. He wasn't bad when he was actually – I don't want to say bad, but he wasn't atrocious and as bad as people made it seem to be when he was actually putting in the effort. His laziness was kind of his issue. Trace isn't just necessarily the laziness. It's that he's literally the worst defender in the NBA. It's not even close. Like, the bar is so low. It's bad. That's the one thing that kills me. It's like if he was even – if he was a bad defender, I'm not even talking how bad he is now, just a bad
mediocre kind of.
I'm not even – he doesn't even have to be mediocre. He could legitimately just be bad. And he would be on that top 3 point guard, right?
Yeah.
You're talking Steph, Dame, and then it depends on where you put Luka as a position.
Kyrie, don't forget about him. So he would be.
Yeah, he's in that conversation, top 3, top 5, depending on where you positionize players nowadays, because Luka came in as a small court. Apologize, my dogs are going crazy. But depends on the positions, right? So he's in that elite conversation. But then you look at his defensive side where it kills him so much, where it's a shame, because everything he does in the offensive end kind of gets kicked back on the defensive end. And it's not like he's super efficient like Steph. Like, Steph's not a good on-ball defender. That's no secret, right?
Oh, he's awful.
Yeah, exactly. There's a reason why every time it comes around, they'd switch. Clay was on the ball instantly, as soon as they could. But off-ball, not a problem, right? And that's kind of his issue. Like, there's no success anywhere.
He's not instinctive, you know.
There's no instincts. There's nothing that kind of makes you excited. Like, if the ball is anywhere near him on defense, it's just a shame. It really is. Like, as bad as it sounds, it doesn't result in good things. So, I mean, league average, obviously, league average-wise, he's shooting pretty much on point, right? Actually, slightly inefficient, technically. But you're also considering the fact that league average talks about guys who get much better shots. So 7-foot guys getting easy dunks under the rim, Clint Capella, DeAndre Jordan kind of guys. So, you know, he's average in terms of efficiency shooting, but he's just so hard to stop.
Right.
Inefficient with the turnovers, but his turnovers make sense considering he's putting up, you know, he can give you 30 and 10 on a night.
Plus, he has the ball in his hands a lot, so that's driven too. So
he's every possession goes through him, right?
Oh yeah.
So it's one of those things. Like, it's not necessarily that I hate Trae Young, because I was huge on him coming out of college. As much as, you know, he got a lot of hate for going to be a bust because he takes bad shots and, you know, he can't play defense. Well,
Kind of true.
And the ball has to be in his hands. But that's one of those things that worked out for Atlanta well, right? Like, that was kind of the same thing with Charlotte. We had the same issues with LaMelo. Can't play defense. The only thing going for him is his size, and he can't shoot. Well, you gave the guys the keys to the city and let the guys do their thing, and success comes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and both those teams obviously needed somebody to do that for them. You need that start, and you need to establish it, right? They couldn't fall for a guy that's just going to be good. They need a guy that's going to be great. Mm-hmm. So, I like Trey. I just wish he'd put in more effort on the defensive side and just trying to – and you can't teach some of this, but he's got to figure something out, because if he continues his pace as the worst defender in the NBA for years, which I'm hoping he gets better. He's only 22 years old, but if he continues his pace, it's going to be rough. And that's kind of the point where it comes playoff time is he going to get picked on?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Come on, that's barbecue chicken, huh?
Yeah, and how bad is he going to get picked on? Is it going to be like, I mean, you obviously can't take him on the floor. You just can't.
No.
But on the other end, you take guys off like Drummond, who can't play in the fourth quarter because he's going to shoot 36% from the free throw line, and it's a shame that he can't figure it out on the defensive end. But they've got to do something to put themselves to the top, and that's one of the major things that they need to fix with him.
Another player, I'm pretty sure we're going to go at odds with, D'Angelo Russell. Analytics say he's, the mid-range has his game. It shows his inefficiency. Although he's made strides in his year in Brooklyn, and now that year in Golden State, he I thought it was an off year for him. In Minnesota now, it was no Towns was there to build cohesion. What's your thoughts on D'Angelo Russell?
My man took a deep breath.
Oh, so D'Lo's one of those guys that he needs the ball in his hand, right? You feel like he needs the ball in his hand. Again, not a good defender, but not necessarily Trae Young back, but also not the difference on the other end. I feel like he just doesn't accomplish it. He's not enough to be a primary scorer, right? So it kind of puts you in that Kemba range too, where he's a floor raiser, but not somebody that sets your ceiling high, right?
I like that.
If you ask me right now, somebody would I want Lonzo or I want D'Lo? Well, is my team atrocious, like the Nets were when he first came into town? Give me D'Lo all day. Mm-hmm. But if you're a championship team that needs another piece,
you want Lonzo.
Maybe Lonzo fits better.
Because the defense.
Yeah, and not only the defensive side, but you can trust him running the second unit and getting things involved. But then he comes to the first unit and he doesn't need that ball in his hand, right? So, although Lonzo is inconsistent, but you get the piece though. So it's one of those things where I just not sure he's ever gonna make the difference. And it seemed like this year was a big piece of that too, right? It's he went to Minnesota. The expectations were they were going to be a good team. Beasley had a really good year last year and became a good player, something they could trust. They added a number 1 overall pick. D'Lo, Cat. I mean, those 4 or 5 pieces are good pieces. And then they still struggled? Why?
Never on the floor together at the same time, really.
That's true. That's definitely a part of it. But they just couldn't find success. And I think that Minnesota looks a lot better with the ball in Anthony Edwards' hands than it does in D'Lo's, right? So we've seen D'Lo or Edwards take 21 shots a game at this point. I think he's taken 21 shots a game since the All-Star break.
Yeah, he's been taking a lot. He's been checking them
Which
out.
Ridiculous for a rookie, right? You have a guy like that taking 21 shots a game, you're probably terrible, which Minnesota is. But when he's scoring 26 points a game, that's a pretty good sign, especially when it's efficient, right? So what is D'Lo's realistic ceiling at this point?
He is what he is. He can get you 18, maybe 3 or 4 rebounds, 5 or 6. He can be that playmaker on the floor. We've seen it. Like
Yeah.
especially with the Nets, you know what he can do. I would want him on my team because obviously I'm point guard star. I'm not like you guys. I don't have a point guard like that. So,
We have,
who?
I said we have four
Yeah,
guys.
it must be nice. Yeah, it must be Graham, Mello. I mean, come on now. Love Mello. Excuse me. I'm sorry.
We have
Love
four guys on
Mello.
point guard right now. We're just like, who wants it? Who wants it now?
Listen, the last guy who badmouthed D'Lo, we muted him in the group for about 2 or 3 months. So my suggestion is you tread carefully.
So you're saying I need to go in there and just paste a full rant of 1,000 reasons why I hate D'Lo, and the list just never stops.
I'll give you one more player. Russell Westbrook.
So
Triple-double.
there's a trend here, right? The 3 players. Inefficient. Fair, right? So the thing with Westbrook is of uncontested free throw rebounds in Oklahoma City. I forget the time range exactly, but I want to say it was a 3-year time range after Durant left. He had 62 uncontested rebounds, defensive rebounds on the from free throws. The next closest person in the entire league had 21.
Okay.
Which isn't a problem. I mean, that's great for them because they really needed him to jumpstart the offense, right? He pushes the pace, and that's what he does. I mean, he's literally a madman. That man runs at 100 miles an hour at all points, doesn't stop, and that's great for him. But his problem is he kind of takes himself out of the play, right? Not to go back to the Hornets, but Terry Rozier did the same thing for a while when he first came to Charlotte. His issue was he didn't know how to slow it down. He was 100 miles an hour, and he did the same thing in Boston for a while too. Now that he slows it down a little bit, a lot better player, more efficient with the ball. You can trust him to carry it a little bit and not feel like he's just going to give it away or do something just too quick. But Westbrook, his shot selection isn't the greatest.
That's true.
So his shot selection, he shoots like he's Kobe, but he's efficient. He's just not there, unfortunately.
The bank shot doesn't do it for you.
No, it's not. He takes the range shots like he's Steph, which kills me. It's there's no efficiency, right? So again, a floor raiser in the middle grounds there. I feel like would be a dominant player for any team that's bad, really bad, or great already. But that middle ground is where he causes issues. We saw Paul George kind of come to town. He had some bad playoff games too. But for a team with the 2 of them, they should have won a playoff series, right? There's no reason for them to lose to Utah in 6 games. They lost to the Blazers in 6. I think in the other one, right? When
Dame hit the shot. Yeah.
Yeah.
that shot. So, I mean, that was just the 2 years. They win 4 playoff games over 12 games, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like the rest of the team was necessarily terrible, but it wasn't they weren't bad teams. They were teams that we expected to win that series.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go back and look at it, yeah, Westbrook's numbers were great. And so you look at his turnovers, which, I mean, it comes, again, with like Trey Lund, comes with all those touches. But at the end of the day, I'm just not sure. Like they made him. It felt like he was doing too much, and others weren't involved enough. As crazy as that sounds, right? Like somebody averaged 10 assists a game, not getting the team involved. Sounds
Right.
ridiculous. But when the ball's in his hands, and almost every possession, and I want to say it was like 36% or something, or 30, someone low to mid 30s percentage-wise of possessions that ended in his hands or ended from him passing it to the shooter. So it's crazy because he's so electrifying and just so crazy.
So I'll ask you this: Russell Westbrook triple-double, Luka Doncic triple-double. James Harden, triple-double. Apparently, all triple-doubles aren't the same.
So I will say Luka's definitely on the – they're all three have some similarities depending on the game, right? So it depends on the situation. You have games where Westbrook's just dominating the boards. If you're talking about the most dominant, like, rebounding point guard, I mean, it's assuming Ben, we're not Simmons, who's an absolute freak and 6'9". Westbrook's the most dominant on the boards, right? He just clears. But at the same time, I think he also pushes the pace for them, but it's also unnecessary at times. And that's kind of thing that, like, worked out well for Golden State was Draymond was such a good rebounder, and it let Steph go up the floor. So instead of Steph going collecting 9 rebounds a game, collecting in these uncontested rebounds, they push the pace. So the ball is instead of Westbrook having to take 5 or 6 big giant leaps up the floor to get the midcourt, taking you a couple seconds, Draymond clears an easy rebound. It's halfway up the floor to Steph, and he takes 2 steps for a shot. It's uncontested, or he finds Clay in the corner for an uncontested shot. So I think they look like Dallas looks a little better with KP back there.
Yeah.
Jacob's going to lose his mind. But
Go ahead.
But they I think it's the situation, right? Like, Harden definitely does it too. And I think they all 3 of them do it, right? But you also see more efficiency out of the other 2, where Harden, you can trust to put up 50, 60 points on a night, and he's going to win you the game just because he was efficient with it. And it's a willingness to get to the free throw line too. So that helps as well, because he's going to take 20 free throws and he's going to work himself to the line, and he's going to make everyone else respect him and respect everybody else on the floor. Where if Westbrook takes a shot, I feel like it's almost like if he's not hot and on fire, you're okay with him taking a 15-foot jumper. You're okay with him taking a deep 3. Luka, you almost want to see him get to the line at this point rather than take that open shot. Westbrook's free throw percentage is dropping as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's the one thing holding Luka back as well, is like he's shooting – I could honestly see him having like a 50-40 year, and then that third percentage is not going to be the 90. It's going to be like the 70, which is a shame. So I think Luka's in that middle ground between Harden and like Westbrook, where the efficiency lies, and the free throws rely, right? Like Luka gets the line a lot better than Westbrook, but not as often as Harden. But he shoots well like Harden, and you trust him taking the bad shots because he might have that 1 for 12 game. The next game he's 7 for 9, and it's game over, right? So it's Westbrook's more consistent, but his consistency is like 30-10 with 5 turnovers and 10 of 24 shooting. It just drives me nuts.
So then I'll ask you this to close it out. Do you think the triple-double is a watered-down stat?
It depends. So, like, I see a lot of, like, it depends on the game, too. Like, it's kind of like an eye test of that situation, right? That's where the eye test comes in piece. Like, when you watch a Westbrook game, is he going and getting 15 rebounds off the defensive side, and it's just, missed shot, and everybody clears out, and he just walks in and picks up a ball that bounced twice? Or is he, missing a layup and picking up an offensive rebound and slamming it back home?
Oh, you mean the Bob Sura triple-double?
My guy.
Fair. But it's just kind of depends on the situation. Like, I feel like a LeBron triple-double is more meaningful to me than a Westbrook triple-double these days. Like, because you can see he's picking up rebounds underneath, or he's contesting rebounds, where it felt like Westbrook's triple-doubles were, I don't know, an uncontested rebound that's just kind of laying there. And that's where the analytics come in check, right? Like, if you look at standard stats, Westbrook averages 10 rebounds a game. That's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
and how many offensive rebounds does he grab? A lot for a guard, right?
Right.
But how many of those defensive rebounds are uncontested? A ton.
Yeah, quite a high number. But like you say, those uncontested defensive rebounds also pushes the break. So it also plays into the pace of play, style of play. So even though they're uncontested, it may be by design.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's not like it's not like Steven Adams was just box out and going, I don't want this rebound. Let me just give it to Westbrook, right? But what's the first thing? If you watched the Thunder game back when it was MVP season, the first thing was Adams put out a rebound. He grabbed it. He didn't look anywhere else but to his side for Westbrook standing there. And he pushed the pace. So I think the one thing that sucks for teams like, not Brooklyn, but Houston back then, Oklahoma City back then, Dallas now, is just getting somebody like Draymond who makes a significant difference. That you don't need these guys averaging 10 rebounds, 6 or 7 rebounds suffices because now they're getting better opportunities. The ball is moving faster up the court. If you go back and look at the amount of shots uncontested that Clay and Steph took during those championship years, uncontested threes, ridiculous. They were top 10 3 straight years in uncontested three-point attempts, both of them. The two greatest shooters on the planet.
It's really wild and goes to show you how they won 73 games.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that two of the greatest shooters all time on the same team, leading the top 10 in the league in uncontested threes for 3 straight years.
It really is mind-boggling. I'll tell you how. Draymond Green, which begs the question. I mean, he came out this week and said he's the greatest defender ever. I mean, he can guard 1 through 5, kick a guy in the nuts, and win finals games. Does Draymond have a legitimate point?
All time greatest defender? No, not a chance. But I think when we look at all time greatest defender, we have to look past the just bigs. Like if you ask me who is a better defender right now at their position, guarding that position, Rudy Gobert is better than Draymond, right?
Right.
But if you ask me who's the greater all-around defender, probably Draymond, right? Because you can trust him to guard 2 through 4, maybe the 1 in switches and situations.
Right.
But you don't want him to guard the 5. I mean, small
Not
ball
too
lineups.
often.
Small ball lineups you can pull it away with, right? But you don't trust him guarding the 5 consistently. So does he have a case all time? No.
Hell no.
Because, again, you've got so many, and Bill Russell still exists, right? So,
yeah.
Having that Gary Payton. I mean, Scottie Pippen at his position.
It kind of depends on your definition, right? Like, is he the greatest versatile defender all time? Then we're starting to have a conversation. Greatest defender all time? No.
Hell, I don't think he's the best defender this season.
No.
Much less, all time. So
when you say like, you mean like this era or this? Like,
I mean, this current season, I don't think he's the best one. Even let's say his heyday. Yeah, he has a defensive player of the year. I like Ben Simmons this year.
Yep.
Jacob liked Ben Simmons this year.
Absolutely.
But Draymond made a point as to where, basketball IQ and anticipating plays and then finishing the defensive play with the rebound and starting to break, much like you pointed out, was part of his reasoning for making that claim. Scottie Pippen did the same thing.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, he had Jordan and Rodman with him, all-time defenders in their own right. I mean, the pace of play, you could take into account. The three-point shooting, you could take into account. But I like the confidence in Draymond. I wouldn't expect him to say anything else. But, I think he's a little out there as far as making that claim.
So my question for you is, How would you see Kevin Durant as a defender this year? When healthy, obviously.
When healthy, hell, he himself could win Defensive Player of the Year if he wanted to. It's just he doesn't want to expound all that energy on the defensive end.
Exactly. So that kind of brings up a point to extent too, right? Like, how much of a difference does the team in front of you make in your defensive efforts, right? Like Pippen could afford to put that much effort on the defensive end because, again, Michael Jordan was in front of him, right? So obviously he's second option, but he could afford to do it just like KD could in Golden State. That's why KD made such a difference for them too, is he was so good defensively because he could afford to be. Draymond's in a similar situation at certain points, especially during his prime, because his offense was give the ball to the 2 or 3 greatest shooters in the league and get out of the way. So it helped him in certain stances back then. Now, definitely not. And I think that's kind of what makes a difference and kind of thing we need to kind of look at as well when you come down to like who's the greatest defender of all time or even just greatest defender that year is like Ben's obviously an elite defender, but could he maintain that if he was on a different roster?
I think he would.
I think so.
I think he would definitely still be an elite defender, but would he be Defensive Player of the Year?
I think so.
Yeah, I think
you gotta really. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, like I think I know where you're going because he has Tybal, and because Tybal in his own right is a really good defender, and then Embiid, but he can really lock you down. I like how you can put the clamps on him from basically you come up. Once you pass half court, you can put the clamps on him. Or if you go in full court D, I would trust Ben Simmons to do that all the way down there. Yeah. So he definitely, I think, once you play D, you play D. Like that's the thing. If you're good at it, no matter what team you're on, you're going to be able to.
I'm not saying that necessarily the defensive skill changes. I'm saying necessarily the effort changes, right? Because if you put Westbrook on you put Westbrook in Houston right now, or not Houston, I'm sorry, in Brooklyn right now, he would go back to being a good defender. Because he doesn't need to put 100% of his effort into the offensive side of the ball. Where in Oklahoma City during those MVP years, Depot was the second option, and he just wasn't Depot yet, right? So he just couldn't afford to put 100% on both ends of the floor, playing 40 minutes a night because he'd be dead. And we saw that with LeBron in some points too, right? Like in his early 30s, where he started not putting the effort defensively because he carried such a load offensively. So if Ben starts taking, all those extra shots every night and then starts driving the rim a little bit more, not that he doesn't already, but he starts taking an extra couple shots and putting more effort on the offensive end because he needs to, what difference does it make? So it's interesting to see. I'd actually like to go back and take a look at like how Pippen performed defensively that year that MJ was gone. And see like how his numbers, how they drastically changed, if they went up, down, what difference did it make?
Yeah, we'll give Felipe that mission.
Felipe, that's all you.
He's already the whole article written out.
Oh, he got the Excel sheet running.
Yeah, running since we said Pippen the first time.
He looked up and said, "Huh? All right."
But listen, the conversation starts and ends with Bill Russell. If you can shut down Wilt from ever winning a championship, the most dominant center to play this game, that's the end of the conversation.
Yeah, that's fair. I will say the one thing that I will always lean Wilt over Bill as an individual player was the fact that like what he averaged against Bill. It's crazy to me to think that Wilt could average 30 and 30 on Bill Russell, and no one cared, right? Like everyone's like he's still the greatest defender of all time. I don't care if he gave up 30 to Wilt. 11 championships, dominated, head coach, center, didn't matter. So it's crazy that we just instantly greatest defender of all time, Bill Russell, and he gave up 30 and 30 to Wilt Chamberlain. We saw Dwight Howard put up a 30-30 year a couple of years ago, and everyone lost their minds because it was the first one's like
don't remind me of that.
It was one of the bright sides of like the last 5 years at that point. So, but it was the first one since K-Love did it in Minnesota. So it was crazy to see it happen. And obviously era's changed and everything, but 30 and 30, and he still couldn't even win games against Bill.
It really is wild. And like, on the same parallel, Shaq and Hakeem, you know. Shaq, you know, he put up monster numbers, but once you go against Hakeem, that was
He put that
Hakeem.
dream shake on him. That was
Yeah,
it. He's like, what am I supposed to do?
yeah, it's just no answers. But we're also eh, coming down the home stretch. About 30 games left. We're all in the same fantasy league over in the CBS Sports Football is Life group, where I am in first place. I've been giving you advice all year. None of you have taken it. I am just gonna. I might as well put the crown on now.
Man, you got Yogi.
I mean, we can go down the list of who I have, but
just wait till boy Kevin Durant comes back and I start getting my 45+ points a game. I can't wait to put him in over. Who am I putting in now? Al Horford.
Oh, yeah, get him out of here.
Yeah, who do you want, Al Horford or Kevin Durant? I'm thinking I'm leaving the big mean Al, but I don't know. It's hard to tell.
But yeah, it's been a rough go for fantasy sports in general. How you guys have been holding up?
I'm in another league with Tyler. I'm just like, Larry's actually kicking my butt right now, but it doesn't help. You know, once LeBron went down, I was like, uh-oh. I was like, no. And then Bam Adebayo, I keep forgetting to put him up on my in the actual active roster, which is killing me. But that league and then our league, our other league, not CBS, the Yahoo one, I'm like this, because all the injuries are starting to kill me because KD, I haven't seen him since Jesus came home. Who else? But the CBS league, I'm coming along. Once Morant came back, Joe Harris is putting in work for me. Thank you, Felipe, for dropping Keldon Johnson. I appreciate that. I mean, 3J comes back, my team is going to be something else. But right now, they're putting in the work. I'm winning my matchup right now. I got a squeaker in versus Aaron. And now I'm looking to go 9-5 right now.
I'd like to say that as much trash as I talk on Trae Young, and Trae Young, if you're out there and you're listening for some crazy reason, you're both my fantasy leagues. So you are my second savior behind Kevin Durant, who I own in both leagues. So if you could tear it up in the final stretch here, I don't know, like 35 points a game, maybe like a dozen assists or so, something crazy, I'd appreciate it. I don't care if you don't play defense. In fact, I kind of want you to stuck on defense because then you lose games. And if you lose games, I'm probably winning games because you're scoring points. And the Hornets continue to pull up to their 4 seed where they rightfully belong. So I appreciate you, Trae Young. Please score more points. Play less defense.
Yeah, we're gonna have to, we're gonna have to go back and erase like 30 minutes of tape. Oh man. NCAA bracket. We got some.
Who cares?
I know my bracket is screwed. Thank you, Illinois. Thank you, Texas. Go down the line. Tyler, how's your bracket coming along?
About dead as the Knicks' chances of winning a playoff series this year.
No, that's true. Hey.
No, I don't know.
Smoke.
Whoa.
So I'd like to just note that my only hope at this point is Gonzaga and Michigan. So Gonzaga, my Final Four is good because I had Gonzaga, Michigan, and Baylor. I thought they were the clear top 3 teams. And that corner with Illinois was my I wasn't sure where to go because I thought that corner looked really good. I thought Oklahoma State was kind of killing it. And I thought they got a really bad draw, right? Like,
yeah,
they played was it Liberty in the first round?
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to remember who that bracket was there. So they played Liberty in the first round. Then they had to play, assuming Tennessee won what they should have. Tennessee was a good team. They had to play Tennessee.
They look awful.
Yeah, they look bad. But either way, assuming things worked out right for them, they should have had to play a tough Liberty team, end up against Tennessee, and probably play the 4th best team in the country, Illinois, at that point. And I thought the top 4 teams, especially the top 3, were pretty much obvious. And I thought that draw was going to be a death fight between Illinois and Oklahoma State in that Sweet 16 to see who goes to the Final Four. And apparently that's the craziest side of the bracket because right now Houston's the only team that could survive.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I mean, Loyola played well. They played excellent defense. That trap defense on Illinois gave the Muncie trouble. Once that went down, there went my bracket.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan surviving. Baylor actually looks like a decent team. I'm very shocked at that. West Virginia got ousted. I was a round later than I thought, so good for them. But you know, who was Oregon State? They looked pretty good, but you know, right now my hope is that Gonzaga makes the championship game. I can somewhat salvage my bracket, but all things considered, a very entertaining tournament.
Are we hoping for Gonzaga to go undefeated at this point, or are we just kind of like anybody but them? What's our takes at this point?
I want to see it. I want to see somebody run the table. I just like seeing that.
Yeah, right? Like, if it wasn't for Michigan, I'd be like, yeah, run the table. But like, at the same time, the same time, you kind of want to see like somebody crazy, like not that Syracuse, but Syracuse.
Oh God, no.
I mean, me too. I hate Syracuse, but like the 11 seed kind of makes it cool. But like Oregon State, Sister Jean, and the squad, like one of them winning would be super crazy. But at the same time, like at this point, as long as Syracuse doesn't win, I think I'm good.
That's what I'm at this point. I'm like, nah, that's one team I can't. Plus, I live in the area, so I'm like, yeah, no, I'm good.
Ooh, yeah, that might be tough.
Yeah.
Thanks, though.
Yeah. So I guess the consensus here is anyone but Syracuse.
Absolutely.
Prefer Oral Roberts because that would be just hilarious.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
A nice championship for Oral.
So we're making no jokes here, right? We've made enough jokes.
I'm gonna let that one go. I gotta check the family box for the YouTube upload. So
I will
I'm keep clean.
Real quick update. Malik Monk has 21 points, and we are 5 minutes into the second quarter. Charlotte's up 60-31 on Miami. So you guys suck.
Oh man,
Malik Monk getting that burn. Can we trade him for Kevin Knox?
I wouldn't take Kevin Knox for free at this point.
I'm never letting it go. I wanted MPJ. I wanted it. I was hoping. I was like, please, I would gladly take his back issue because I think he would have came back strong. He's young. And then I'm telling you, every time I watch Denver, and I watch a lot of them, it hurts. It really hurts. It hurts my soul. I'm just sitting there going.
I need to go back in the group and find all the love I had for Michael Porter Jr. And express how I thought he was the number one pick for a very long time. Even with the back injuries, I still thought he was a top 5 pick.
Yeah, he definitely was, man. It was.
And it's like everyone just wants Denver to win at this point. Like everyone's like, you know what, Denver? You want a championship? Here, have it.
Fuck out of here, Brooklyn. What's wrong with you people?
Aaron Gordon for free. Mike Porter Jr. Oh, you can have him in the late lottery. No big deal.
Yeah.
You could thank the Knicks for Jamal Murray. The last part of the Melo deal gave him Jamal Murray.
Oh my God, that was brutal.
Well, y'all guys gave up Tatum and Lillard pretty much, so I don't feel it's bad.
Yeah, that's true. But you
redeemed yourself.
Yeah, you got a point there. I know we had a lot of tournament talk. Thank our good friend Lucas last week. Suffered a brutal loss for Illinois, but he was great last week on our show.
Yes.
Shout out to him, new Football Life admin. I'd like to thank you, Tyler, for coming on as well, sharing your knowledge and backing up those claims of D'Lo and Trae Young and Knicks just no playoff wins. I mean, you got a lot of bad takes here tonight, buddy. But,
hey, I still have Brooklyn winning it all. If that makes you feel better.
All right, I'll forgive you.
Oh God, here we go.
Thank you, Tyler, for coming on in the Heat jersey. Big Hornets fan. Been real great here. You can catch many of our other shows. We know spring training is coming up. We got the more fantasy news, fantasy drafts coming along. Felipe, Sean Connor Flannery, Sunday mornings, Total Basis podcast, 11 a.m. in Baseball Life. Monday, NL East preview. This Monday, 7 p.m. The NL Central was this past Monday.
Nobody cares.
Yeah, Pittsburgh done before we even start.
Are you a Pirates fan?
Yeah, it's painful.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Bobcats were back. Let me just slide in them Pittsburgh Pirates for $4.
That's true. But you have the Steelers, so all that kind of washes it away. Just a little bit.
After the last
Just a little bit.
3 months.
I'll forever hate the Steelers because y'all ruined our championships like 2 years ago. Yeah, screw y'all. I'll never like y'all ever. Big Ben could kiss my ass. Heath Miller could kiss my ass.
It's not our fault that you
all of
took
them.
Sanchez and thought he was a starting quarterback. That is not our fault.
He was for about 2 years. I mean.
Yeah, but if you had literally anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, I think we would have been fine. But, now the quarterback hopefully changes. Yeah, I don't want to get on the same train, but it's that God time. You heard it here first.
Yeah.
Yep.
Please don't suck.
And you can hear that again this Tuesday night. Football Life presents The Audible. Matt Bushnell, Randy Hammond. Those guys are going to be covering draft prospects coming up. I think they're going to go through the first 10 to 15 of them. We break that down for you. Once Matt gets into that tape, he does not leave.
No.
Excellent breakdown from him. Work Shoot Podcast. Wrestling Life. Jason Brooks. Corey Richmond. Fast Lane was this past Sunday, right?
Yes, it was. It wasn't bad.
We got something to watch, something entertaining now.
Hey, man, they did their thing. I won't. Everything was entertaining about it. It wasn't really. I was expecting a C plus. I got a B. I was like, okay. But you go definitely check out Fastlane. Check it on WWE Network. But we'll let those guys discuss it. And
yeah, they do a wonderful job as well.
Absolutely.
You can catch us right back here next Friday night, 7 p.m. You can catch all our previous episodes on the YouTube channel or Anchor, Spotify, Apple, if you're listening, by subscribing to the Life Group Podcast Network. And,
Do it.
Exactly, do it. Big Niner trade, and we know Henry is real excited for that. Again, catch that on Tuesday. Like, geez. Tyler's taking more heat. You just keep dishing them out, man.
That's what we took over with the gun smoke. That's what we want. We like that.
Jimmy Garoppolo.
Oh.
Oh, poor guy. Going back. He's like, I could be part of one of the greatest dynasties ever as a backup quarterback. I'm living the good life. Then he goes to the 49ers, loses in the Super Bowl. They suck for a year. They're going to get the pieces back together. Then everyone's healthy with a nice top 10 or top 12 pick.
Oh, yeah.
And then all of a sudden, and then they're like, by the way, we're trading up. We're getting a quarterback, and you're out. Bye. Go back to New England.
But, hey, you never know. He'll probably turn that squad back around. They'll be terrorizing the Jets for another freaking 15, 20 years or something.
Yeah, that'd be your luck.
Pretty much.
Wait, I'm sorry. I just got to say this. I can't believe you just did the whole visual effect here just to get in your troll. You know what? You're a bad man, Tyler. You're a bad man.
Hey, you get the opportunity.
And you know what? We're about to end it right now.
That's it.
Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week. Until next time, ball out.
Ball out.